Well, everyone, as promised, I am back immediately afterwards, and this is my review of Transformers: Dark of the Moon. Now, there's a lot of bile for this franchise. Much of it I have spat myself, admittedly. But at the same time, it almost pains me to say it, because I really didn't like the sequel to the original Transformers movie they made, and I kind of like this one. What can I say? I mean, I will not say that it's a particularly good movie. No, not by any means. Actually, in fact, I saw this with a friend, and we were kind of joking about it throughout. There's so many plot inconsistencies, and so much just ridiculous things happening that either don't have any relevance to the plot, or just don't make any sense in general. People contradict themselves all the time. But you know what? It's more fun than the sequel. And that, I actually still say, I somewhat enjoyed the first movie because it was fun. And you know what? There were some dumb jokes. There was really bad characterizations. Basically no plot. But at least for a summer movie, I was like, you know what? This is dumb fun. It could be better, yes, but what I am given is not the worst thing I've ever seen. The sequel, Revenge of the Fallen, that basically was pretty terrible. I was really bored throughout it. It just seemed to drag on and on forever. And Dark of the Moon, this one, is actually longer than the sequel, believe it or not. It's a little over 2.5 hours. And that's mighty impressive, seeing as this is a Transformers film. It's a movie about transforming robots. But, gotta say, I was actually fairly entertained all the way. There was a very good pacing in this movie, if nothing else, I think. Although you definitely have to give credit to the effects, even if they are somewhat of a visual mess at times. Less so than the sequel. Again, that's basically this entire film summed up in one line. It is less so than the sequel, and yet more so because of it. It is more than meets the eye in that case. Sorry, I couldn't resist. But suffice to say, Dark of the Moon is definitely above, a cut above the sequel, Revenge of the Fallen, for a lot of reasons. One, because of the actors' performances. 2, because of more coherent editing. And 3, because it actually had a plot this time that made some sense. And let me go down on this one, because I think this first one could be somewhat controversial. The actors' performances. A lot of reviewers have said, yeah, they're so over the top and cartoony. And you know what? Yes, they totally were. These are not very good performances by any means. But at the same time, I gotta say, probably did the best they could with what they were given to work with. But that's not the point I'm trying to make. The point I'm trying to make is that because these Michael Bay's movies are so bombastic and so over the top, you start to think to yourself, you know, well, if the actors themselves just go so over the top, it almost meshes in a weird sort of way. Particularly, there's a lot of smaller roles in this movie that are filled by really famous actors who really out of character for most of them, uncharacteristic, are just blowing the top out of over the roof with their performances. I mean, these characters are absolutely ridiculous. My favorite, actually, random performance is John Malkovich. What are you doing in a Transformers movie? I mean, I don't love John Malkovich, but whoa, this is not your type of film. That said, I think a lot of the enjoyment came from that. Seeing this usually very, pronounced actor starring in things where he actually gets a chance to act, be really silly and over the top of this was kind of a treat. The main they actually have a main human villain in the movie this time around too, which is, again, gives the humans a little more to do, a little more invested in the plot line. And like I said, though, the main thing I really have to say is that Shia LaBeouf, the Beef, I actually like the Beef, to be honest, but I think he's a pretty good actor. Not a huge amount of range, but I generally like him in the things he does. It's true his performance in the Transformer movies is very rote, but he's written that way. So again, got to do best with what you can, right? But in this one, maybe it's just the fact that because there's a lot more human sections in this one than Revenge of the Fallen, which is just a constant onslaught of machinery, 2.5 hours long, and a little more so than the first movie, though, where the Transformers really only popped up until the last climax. But anyway, besides the point, I don't know how many throat lozenges he went through making this movie, but wow. I mean, I know his whole no thing people don't like, but that's his character. I've come to accept at this point. He does a little more with it this time, where he's just so bombastically over the top that generally it's actually, you're not really rooting for him per se as much as you find him amusing because he's this over the top. So in that case, I think he's playing this kind of like very lowbrow comedy really nicely. That's another thing I got to address too. The comedy, this level of comedic enterprise, as it were, in Dark of the Moon is a little different than the previous movies. It still has some of the same jokes, some of the same kind of situational silliness, of course, but the parents make a return, and they're a good example of this. But at the same time, it has a really weird, quirky sense of humor. I mean, we did not get to see Roa piss on anyone, thank God. Never in the entire movie. And those racist robots are gone. Only to be replaced by more racist robots. But they're not as bad this time around, so I'll forgive it. And maybe it's just my lowered expectations, almost assuredly so, from Revenge of the Fallen, but again, I didn't find this one that bad, and I feel like I'm losing credibility. It's just every time I open my mouth and spew some positive things about Transformers, my credibility is just going with it. But again, though, like the beefier, he really just is so broad that it becomes like a Three Stooges cartoon. It kind of works for the movie. What can I say? I mean, I don't really want to spoil anything. God, did I say something to spoil in the Transformers franchise? Gee. But the plot is, again, the acting is done pretty well, and the plot actually services the actors a lot more. That gives them a little something to do, and actually attempts to establish things, even if it's a little haphazardly. They get the new girl in kind of nonchalantly. It's just like, oh, she dumped me. Really? After 2 world-ending conflicts, she dumped you? Like, what did you do? Not bring home the milk, and that was just the straw that broke the camel's back, or what? But overall, the story actually was decent this time around. It made a little more sense, thank God, and while it was pretty ridiculous, it carried some consequences with it. And while it's not the dark and brooding Transformers movie that many people want and what Michael Bay promised it would be, it's it's better. It's better than Revenge of the Fallen. Overall, the effects, if there's anything you could say that Michael Bay does well, it's the effects. The editing is a little better this time around. You can see more of the things that are happening. And while it's true the Transformers are still somewhat of a technological mess, where you get the eye is just a little too much for the eye to take in. It works better this time around. As much as people really hate slow motion, it actually does help in this one. And the fact that while there's a lot more Transformers this time around, they're a little more recognizable, if only on personality traits. At the same time, Decepticons use this army of what I like to call Generabots that have no names and just kind of roam around doing things. And I gotta say, as much gotta get the negative stuff too, is that why does anything happen in this movie? Anything. There's so many problems with this plot and inconsistencies here, and the fact that we're like, why is there the army on the moon? I don't know. Do you? Tell me if you do. I'm pretty sure there's no actual explanation for it. I mean, I know they did give an explanation, but it doesn't explain everything they have there. I'm not going to say anything. I don't want to spoil it in this video because I really abhor spoilers, even for something that I don't think really can be spoiled. But it just, a lot of things, and character motivations just don't make sense. A lot of people, again, to contradict themselves, I can't stress that enough. At one point, not a huge spoiler, at one point, the Decepticons say, alright, like, close off the city, we're going to enslave these people. And then they start killing everyone. Not a particularly great method to get slaves, guys. Just a thought. But what do I know? And maybe I'm not a genius. I don't know a whole lot about gravitational fields and the orbit. But the climax, really? Like nothing happens after that? All 3 of those planetoids are okay? I'll say no more. Overall, Transformers Dark of the Moon, also, by the way, I gotta mention the shameless product placement, both, physically and musically. It actually worked somewhat better musically this time around because he toned it down a little, but at the same time, they're not quite as appropriate as they were in the first movie, so take it how you will. Overall, Transformers Dark of the Moon is not terrible. It's not a good movie, not a great movie, that's for damn sure. taken for what it is, what it attempts to do, it does it fairly well, and it is nowhere near as bad as Revenge of the Fallen, and that is a great relief in and of itself. If you like the Transformers franchise, you're probably going to like this one a lot. If you don't like the Transformers franchise, well, it depends if you want to go see this one or not. The only reason I really went to see this is because a friend wanted to go as well, and well, tag along with them. But if you mildly like the Transformers franchise, like if you have some kind of fondness of the first movie and didn't like the second one, go for this one. You may enjoy it a little more. There's some pointless bits, some really stupid new Autobots, one incredibly frightening genius Autobot with its dead eyes and freaky hair and teeth staring back at you, giving me nightmares. But other than that, it's not a bad movie. Go see it, I guess. It's going to make a shit ton of money anyway. You might as well throw your $13 in too if you have any intention of seeing it. It is very much a theater movie, so what more can I say? As far as the trilogy goes, pretty haphazard. If they're making a fourth one, which they do say they're going to, then I hope that it's handled with a little more care than this, at least. If it's handled by a different person, maybe it has more of a chance. If it's handled by Michael Bay again, who knows? Maybe if it's better than Dark of the Moon, it might be just a little better. And Michael Bay, you moved up a little in my book. Not much, though. Anyway, I suppose we'll see. That's all I have to say with this one.